Alright bro, it's almost 1 a.m. in the morning and welcome to the first episode back into these gym vlogs that I'm going to start doing. But these aren't normal gym vlogs. I'm going to be speaking about, because a lot of you boys know me, shit that I've been through. Obviously, you know, I grew up in the ghetto. I was a drug addict and I started using drugs when I was 15. My father left and I went through hell and back growing up. I've built myself to be the young man I am today. But that's not to say that I haven't been through hell and back to get here. And I want to tell you boys my story, tell you boys the shit that's going on in my own mind, tell you boys how I built myself, just put everything out there, alongside get a workout in as well. But we're mostly going to focus on the message and what I got to say. And what better way to start any of these videos off, these episodes off, by going deep into what made me into the young man that I am today. I grew up in the ghetto, and I'll give you the 30-second rundown, bro. My mum immigrated from Fiji to Australia. Both her parents died when she was young, man, 18, 19. She met my dad. My dad ended up being a no-beat, good-for-nothing alcoholic. He left when I was about 5 years old. He literally looked at my brothers and myself and my mum, and he wasn't a good man as it is, packed his shit one day and says, see you later. I kind of had a relationship for a little bit when I was younger with him, but it was exactly what you'd think it'd be. Barely anything. Until I got to a point when I got older, I realized a lot of things, and I'm like, okay, well, you live your life, I'll live mine. But my dad left when essentially my brothers needed him the most. Let's say it, my brothers are quite older than me. I'm 26 and they're in their mid-30s, right? So let's just say 10-year age gap between us. And my brothers, they're like a year between each other. They're almost like twins, almost like 9-10 months apart. So a 10-year age gap between me and my brothers, and my dad left. My mum was so broke growing up, and her parents, my grandparents, did the utmost best that they could. But they grew up very poor in Fiji. They grew up in a tin hut, essentially, my mum and her sister and her family, right? They had no electricity, no hot water. My mum tells me stories that she had to literally like go to neighbors' houses and get water if it hadn't rained in a while. Far out, crazy. And then unfortunately, you know, I lost both my grandparents, and my mum lost her parents when she was young, bro, 20 years old, still a kid. She lost both of them. When she came to Australia, she hustled. And she did everything that she could to provide for herself. She met my dad, you know, they had a couple kids, eventually they had me, etc., etc. But she was placed in government housing. You know, she was living, you know, the way that she was living with some family when she first came here. And then, you know, she applied for government housing, which is what literally is labeled as the ghetto, like the nickname of the government housing, the hood that I was raised in. Because I lived there for 20 years of my life, 21 years I lived there, I'm 26 now, was nicknamed the ghetto. Every person there called it the ghetto, the ghetto, the ghetto, the ghetto. So that's why I call it the ghetto. I'll say this before I continue. I know that my life is definitely not the same upbringing as a lot of people growing up in slums or the ghettos in like America or something like that. But it does not change the shit that went down. You know, to zoom out, I grew up in a place where I've known people I was a little bit close to, my brothers were more close to this guy, that have killed their mum. Isn't that insane? Now, guns aren't really a big thing here in Australia. They're not, like, they're illegal to have, I'm pretty sure. Like, it's not like any other place in the world. But there were instances where people were shooting guns and like getting the complete lockdown of our complex. Crazy. There were overdoses where people, you know, done too much drugs and they overdosed. They died in their homes, and people didn't find them for weeks later. I know people, and these are some of the boys I grew up with, who unfortunately I'm not very close with, starting to use drugs when they're 8, 9, 10 years old, because, well, that's normal. But to kind of go back to my mum, she did everything that she could to provide for her 3 sons by herself after my dad left. But my brothers were at that age because shit starts young. When you grow up in the hood, man, shit starts young. When you're about 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, boom. Everything that is kind of normal in the ghetto hits you at that age. So you could be 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old, and drinking, someone's drinking that's a little bit older than you, same age, and you start drinking when you're that young. You start smoking, you start doing drugs, you start being a bit of a delinquent, you start stealing, you start doing all this shit because, well, it's just normal. You see, everyone I grew up with, and my mum is genuinely an exception. Everyone I grew up with, my childhood best friends, all their families, you know, their parents were exactly what you'd expect from that type of family. They were either heavily using drugs, they were very dysfunctional, they were lower class, and that's not to talk ill of them, but it's just straight facts. You know, a lot of my friends grew up without dads, or they had dads, but they were deadbeat dads like my dad. Like, it was just, everyone kind of comes from the same type of upbringing. Everyone's family is involved with drugs. It's very dysfunctional. But when my dad left, my brothers, you know, they were at that age where they needed a dad more than anything because the ghetto was calling. And without a dad, and my mum doing the utmost best that she could, but my mum's best working fucking every double shifts as much as she could to provide for us. And we were so broke growing up, bro. We were poor. We were really poor growing up. My mum did everything that she could, but look, it wasn't enough. It definitely wasn't enough because the ghetto's grip was stronger. She could have disciplined us to the max, and she did her best. But when you've got all these boys that you're growing up with similar backgrounds, right? Like, everyone's growing up the same, everyone's a bit of a delinquent. My brothers fell for that life, and they fell for it young. And just as they got older, and I was still very young at this time, remember there's like a 10-year gap between us. As I was getting older, let's say I was 8 years old, and my brothers would say they were 18, 19, 20, something like that. They started falling heavy into that life, heavy. And I love my brothers a lot, but unfortunately I'm not close with any of my brothers. And, you know, that hurts to say, but unfortunately one of my brothers has fallen victim to that life very heavily, badly, and is still stuck in that life. And when you're addicted to one of the worst drugs that there is in the world, man, that makes you do some unspeakable things that my brother has done. And, you know, he lives the life that he lives. And my other brother, whom, again, I'm not very close to, but he is kind of a crucible for me becoming the young man that I am today. He kind of gave me a roadmap, even though I'm not close with him. He fell hard for that life. So you got both my brothers who fell hard for that life. One of my brothers never made it out, and he's still living that life, which is very sad. But then another brother, he fell hard for that life young, but it caused him to, well, let's put two and two together. I won't say it because out of privacy. When you grow up in the ghetto, you abuse drugs, you end up in a few places. You go to a place where all the bad people go, and you go to another place when, you know, the drugs and stuff, they mess with you a lot. And there's a few other places that you can go, but both my brothers fell hard for that drug life. They went straight into the places that, you know, are destined for those people. One of my brothers never made it out, and my other brother, he went there young, and just shit started happening, right? To say it like that. But I will say, I'll be very open and honest about myself. I'm not got nothing to hide. But my whole life, my mum was just trying to pick up the pieces for what my brothers were going through, what was happening. And my house was war growing up. My brothers close in age, right? They're almost like twins, like not a bit, almost twins, right? Like 10 months apart, a year apart. It was chaos growing up. And everyone's family was going through the same shit. Chaos, just fights, crime, all this shit. And it was war going on for every single person that I knew. And what happened is, because my brothers were getting involved in all these things happened, we were so poor growing up. My mum was doing her best. My mum used to break. She broke so many times, my mum, because, you know, she was just trying to pick up the pieces of her sons, and all these things are happening. One brother's here, all this shit's happening. Life became this one big fucked up mess. And I bore the front of a lot of things because I was young. So when my brothers were going through all this stuff, I would have been 8, 9, 10 years old, just a little kid. And all that shit, my mum and all my brothers, what they were going through, and everyone that I knew growing up in the hood as well, that just started to cause this downward spiral for things to go worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Like I said, I know someone that's killed their mum. Everyone I knew is still addicted to drugs, or, you know, people have died, bro, from all these overdoses, and young people as well. Like, it's so normal. But that doesn't come without me saying that my childhood was all that bad. Because I'm going to say something. I believe that I had one of the best childhoods as well. I had all the boys from my neighborhood who I caused a lot of mischief with. We were just kids being kids. And as you would have grown up, bro, and as a lot of people would have grown up, when you hit a certain age, you just tend to do things, right? You play soccer, or you do just normal kid stuff. But the thing is, the only difference about growing up in the hood is that the shit that you do just has this naughty aspect to it, this, in a weird way, criminal aspect to it. You start stealing, you start doing dumb stuff, you start doing drugs, you just do all of that. But I had a lot of fun as a kid, and there was two sides of me. There was a side of me that was completely broken, but there was also a side of me that was cool, fun, naughty, doing dumb stuff. And whilst I was going through all this shit in my life with my brothers and my mum, and seeing all these things happen, because it was a constant occurrence of all these bad things happening. It wasn't like, oh, one bad thing happens and then another bad thing happens a year later. It was constant. If shit wasn't going on in my house, it would be going on in the street. And if shit wasn't like going on in the street, it was going on in my house, and it was getting worse. And it was getting worse, and it was getting worse, and it was getting worse. There was never an upwards period for my life until I got truly older. There wasn't. It was always downwards, always shit going wrong. But I hit an age when I was about 13, 14, 15, and I started following the exact same footsteps that my brothers did and all the boys that I knew growing up, and that's using drugs, abusing it, doing the wrong things, all of that. And it was completely normal. I never looked at it as something that I was being cool, or, you know, I was trying to fit in. It was just what you knew, just what I knew, just what all my friends knew. And it was insane, some of the things. And we're going to speak about, you know, all of my antics and all of the shit that I used to get up to in another video. But let me circle back to what growing up was like for me. It was extremely difficult. That broke me in a million pieces at so many different times. But it also taught me a lot as well, but those lessons didn't come until I got older. It was a constant kind of feeling of we were always just at this place, rock bottom. And I always felt like an outcast as well. I grew up in a neighborhood, right, that my public school still had people that came from wealthy families. So I saw this stark contrast as well. I grew up in the hood, it was fucked, but then I also saw a contrast of like some of my friends that I grew up with who had functional families. They grew up rich, and, you know, things were just better for them. And I always had this feeling that, okay, well, there's something wrong. And I always knew that we were struggling, and I always knew that we were kind of fucking broke. But like when you start to see things from a different perspective, because as I got older I started making these friends, and, you know, friends outside of the hood, and they came from nice lives, then that started to mess with me. I would go home, there'd be cockroaches, we didn't have the internet for so long, like fucking, you'd open the cupboard and there was rotten food, like it was that. But to circle that back, I had a lot of shit happen to me when I was younger, involving my brothers, as I said, but, you know, a lot of things happened to me that we'll touch on in another video, that, you know, I was a lot of shit happened. But I can tell you, my life, as messed up as it was everything I needed it to be to now be the young man that I am today. You see, I myself, and also one of my brothers as well, and he's the one that kind of showed me this way, we are like an anomaly, meaning that we kind of were able to break out from the ghetto's life of using drugs, being a lot better, building ourselves up, learning from it, achieving things, owning things. Like, where I'm from, everyone that I know, right, is still addicted to drugs. Everyone that I know is still fighting the same battles. No one's made it out. It's uncommon. And I'm not successful, I'm not a millionaire, I'm not none of that, but, you know, I've done a lot. From where I'm from, when I was young or younger, I bought an investment property at the age of 22. I bought this sports car, built my body, built my mind, my frame, my mindset, all of that. It's very uncommon to, you know, have achieved the things that I've achieved, and I'm still on my journey, as I said. But I look at it as a huge asset, and I know that so many people don't get to have this advantage that I do. And that's a very, 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 you know, a very beneficial thing that I have going for me, which I had a moment of self-reflection just there, because it hit me that I know myself that some of the boys that I grew up with, and well, almost all of them, they never got the chance that I did, whether it was because of their families or whether it's because they didn't have the mindset, or whether, you know, there was no spark, no inspiration, no nothing to get them out of that life. It's all become, like I said, my biggest asset. This hard life, this being a drug addict, which we'll speak about in the next video, bro. But all of this stuff growing up in the ghetto was the hardest thing I ever went through. All the things, which I know I've been very blunt about, but all these things that broke me, all these things that happened, all these things that I did, built me to be the best man that I can be today. And I'm still climbing, and I'm still building myself up. So if I was to circle all of this back, or round this up, because we're almost at the gym, bro, before we have a workout, I would say that when you're truly about it, sometimes the toughest things in this world, the things that break you, the hard things, the things that seem insurmountable, trust me, they're the things that make you. They are absolutely, you know, if you're truly about it, the crucible that you need to be the baddest motherfucker that there ever is, to be the best version of yourself. So that quote that we all know, hard times create strong men, that's 100% true. 100%. All right, bro. We're going to go have a workout now. I just pulled up to the gym. Let's go. All right, bro. So you would have seen I done 3 kilometers. I ran it in 10 minutes. I done some push-ups and some pull-ups. Now we're gonna smash shoulders, knock out this. And this will all be supersetted shoulders. Oh shit. Fucking hell, bro. I lost count. I think that was about 100 reps. 50 shoulders, 25 lateral raise, and then fucking 15 of those, 20. Yeah, bro. Wow. All right, bro, that's it. It's 2:30 in the morning. I'm gonna go home and get some sleep. I'm tired. But that's it. That was a little bit of a story of growing up. There wasn't too much detail, but there was something. I'll go more in depth in the future for sure. But the gym for me has always been something that I needed. I never came into this to become an athlete or to compete or to bodybuild. This was something that my big brother gave me when he was picking himself up. When I hit a rock bottom low at 20, after 5 years of heavy drug use, being a drug addict, I got to a place where I was hearing voices, coming up with all these thoughts. I thought that I was losing myself properly, bro. And there's gonna be, you know, a lot of stories where I talk about like overdoses and shit that was going on in my mind at that point. But the gym was the only thing that I had. And the gym for a long time was the one thing I had whilst I was still such a low person as well. When I stopped using drugs and I stopped hanging out with everyone and I had barely any friends and I had, you know, just to get myself back up, I was still at a point where I would go to the gym, but still be pretty much a bum. And this was right at the start of, you know, going to the gym and all that. But as I built myself up, the gym never left me. I'll say this to you. I go to the gym to look good, to look sexy and to look handsome and to have a nice body. But it also is, and it's cliche to say, but for that mental aspect as well. I need it. This is the shit that quiets the voices. This is the shit that gets out the aggression. Alongside boxing and fighting, that's changed my life as well. But that's why I go to the gym. I'd like to say it's a noble thing of, oh yeah, I go for fucking X reason, but I really do go to look good and to quiet the noise. But yeah, that's it, man. What a day. I'm gonna go hit some legs tomorrow, or the next episode we do, and we'll talk about a few things. What should we talk about next video? We'll see. Got a few things on my mind I'd love to speak to you boys. But anyway, that's it. Let's go. Good night.